Hello, hello, my friends, and welcome to Cooking with Carey P, and welcome back to my kitchen. I have some amazing recipes for you today. So over this week, I have been committed to teaching you easy, affordable, plant-based Thanksgiving dishes, and I've been showing you one dish every day. So we started with mashed potatoes, but not just any mashed potatoes. We did a cauliflower mashed potato that I am telling you, you and your family will love. I have made these hundreds of times and you don't even know there's not potatoes in them. And then on day 2, we taught you the most easy, hassle-free gravy. My girlfriend Beth Coletti came over and taught us her go-to gravy. And if you've missed any of these, just go over to the plant-powered hallway, jump in the community and join us, and everything is posted there, including the recipes. So today, in order to get more of that stress and mess out of Thanksgiving for you, I'm not just gonna teach you one recipe, I'm gonna teach you 2. So today on the menu, we're gonna do an acorn squash, which a lot of people, and let me know in the comments if you're one of them. I actually had a good friend, Megan, and Megan, if you're out there, just say hello. Ask what to do with these. They are so nutrient dense, they are amazing, and they're affordable. This little guy can feed up to 4 people, and I'm gonna show you how to make them the most delicious Thanksgiving side that you've had. And then we are gonna do a cranberry sauce. Now, I don't know about you, but Thanksgiving in my house, we had cranberry sauce out of a can. No offense to my mama, Eileen Ralston, she still loves those cranberries out of a can, but I am going to show you how to make a delicious cranberry sauce that not only is great as a side for your cranberries, but is great on these acorn squashes, and you can also turn into a delicious dip. So without further ado, let's get this party started. So I wanna start with the acorn squash. So I'm gonna come over here, and I should give a shout out. Are we on this camera now? Perfect. I have a brand new cameraman named Ronaldo, and he is running the cameras for me today. We got a good shot here. So what we're gonna do with the acorn squash, Ronaldo's gonna get the perfect view for you guys. We're just gonna take a really small little sliver off right there, because that is going to give us, so it won't rock when we're cutting it. Then, we're just gonna cut off the bottom, and you will need a sharp knife for this. It is, you know, it's a little firmer than a potato. So you're gonna cut off the bottom, cut off the top, like that. And then, I always say when you're cutting anything hard, like a root vegetable or a squash, put it on its largest flat side, and then just cut it in half again. Bada bing, bada boom. So then you have this beautiful acorn squash. And what we'll do from here is just scoop out the seeds. And I just use a big tablespoon like this. And we'll scoop this out. You could, if you were more patient than me, clean off those seeds and roast them, just like pumpkin seeds. Okay, so there's one cleaned out one. And then we're gonna do the second. So from here too, if you wanted to just cut off the end so this would sit flat, these are delicious roasted whole, and you could just eat that and maybe put in a little stuffing, or they're actually great for any kind of fall and winter meal. This is something I always, when the seasons start to turn, even though I'm in Florida, so we don't have a lot of the seasons turning, but when squashes come available, I always add these to my list because they stay good for a long time. They have a great shelf life. So what you're gonna do at this point, flip your butternut squash over onto its flat side, and then we wanna get about 1-inch slices. And can you see this, Ronaldo? Am I in the, okay, perfect. So I want them about that thick, okay? So 1-inch slices, and one of these acorn squash can feed, as I said earlier, easily 4 people, and it's gonna give you that really satisfying, hearty fall dish. And honestly, it's so nutrient dense, it's low in carbohydrates, and it's just amazing. Most people also with this kind of squash think you cannot eat the skin. You absolutely can. Just make sure you give it a good wash and dry before we prep it. And then what we're gonna do is take these squash and we're gonna line them on a sheet tray. Now, I had shared earlier that my oven, and let me know if you guys can relate with this, my oven actually just started making this horrible noise. So I am actually going to use my air fryer that also acts as an oven. So that's why I'm using this kind of sheet tray, but you can just line a baking dish and that would be just perfect. So they fit perfectly on here. And then to take it over the top, because it is the holidays, and you could omit this step, but I just think it adds such great flavor. You're gonna add some maple syrup or agave syrup. I happen to use agave today because I was out of maple. Some water, some pumpkin pie seasoning, and some salt. Once again, the recipe, you can either go to the Plant Powered Hallway, our private Facebook group, or just go over to carrieralston.com. So we're gonna mix these together. It makes this delicious glaze almost. And if you don't have pumpkin pie spice, no worries, just use some cinnamon. But pumpkin pie spice, I just love all the additional flavors. So you're just gonna use your brush, give it a nice little coating on here. Oh my gosh, it smells so, so good. It already smells like Thanksgiving. And while these we're gonna cook at 400 degrees, depending on your oven, I'm doing them in my little, convection air fryer oven. So it took about 15 minutes in mine, but I would say 15 to 20 minutes, and these will be perfect. So if we'll switch over this camera right over here, I'm gonna pop these in the oven at 400 degrees. Turn it on, and then we'll go 15, and boom. So we're gonna let those start. And while our acorn squashes are getting nice and golden, we're gonna make our cranberry sauce. And notice how this all kind of just flows perfectly together. It truly comes together this quickly. So what we're gonna start our cranberry sauce off with is we're gonna put it in a medium to large saucepan. So you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna use my big skillet here. And I'm gonna turn it over medium heat. And what we're gonna add is fresh cranberries. And actually, we could go over to this camera just so I can show them. Fresh cranberries during this time of year are everywhere. So they look like this. I will warn you, this isn't a kind of berry that I would just eat on its own because it is quite tart, but they are perfect in this cranberry sauce. And so all I did, give them a good rinse, and then we're going to add them to our big skillet. So we're gonna add, it's just one 12-ounce bag of cranberries, okay? Right here. I have been able to find these everywhere. Then we're gonna add one 6-ounce bag of dried cranberries. But what I like to do is just rehydrate them in some warm water. This is going to rehydrate the berries, and it's gonna give our cranberries, I think, a better texture, and it won't take so long with cooking. So it only takes about 10 minutes. So what I'd advise, if you're making this all together, get your cranberries soaking before you cut your butternut squash. So we have our cranberries in. Then we're just gonna add 2 to 3 oranges, depending on the size. This is a good orange. So I've already washed these. Whenever I use the zest of any kind of citrus, I do try to buy an organic one if it's available. So I want the zest of one of my oranges, and this is optional. Sometimes I have noticed citrus, depending on what time of year it is, it doesn't look the greatest. So if your citrus just doesn't look the greatest, we're lucky here in Florida, just hold off on the zest. And then all I want you to do is just cut your orange in half, squeeze in the juice. And if for some reason your orange isn't that juicy, just put it in the microwave for about 10 to 12 seconds. That will loosen up all of the juice. Uh-oh, now my convection oven's even making noise. It just must be tis the season. So we're gonna do 2 oranges with their juice, and I'm just adding the zest of 1 orange because there was a lot of zest there. I find too using a combination of the dried cranberries and the fresh cranberries just gives it such a great all-day cooked flavor and great texture. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up with the canned cranberries, which I never really liked. It was like Jell-O. It was out of a can. So these, even my mom, who does still love the canned cranberries, loves these. It's almost like 2 totally separate dishes. So we have our cranberries, our zest, and I just added some water. Then we're going to add a little bit of sweetness because, as I mentioned earlier, cranberries are on the tartar side. So instead of using maple syrup, I'm going to use some agave because that is what I have. We're just going to use a few tablespoons of that. And once you cook these down, you'll notice, you'll taste them, and sometimes cranberries, they'll need a little more of the agave if they're just a little bit too tart. And then the final ingredient, we're going to go back to that pumpkin pie spice, and we're going to use 1 tablespoon. Now, pumpkin pie spice, if you don't have it, it's one of those ingredients around the holidays you'll definitely use, and I just want to tell you what's in it. It has, cinnamon, ginger, cloves, and nutmeg. So it's one of those, it's a perfect seasoning that you can use instead of cinnamon. But if you don't have it or you can't find it, cinnamon is perfect. So we have all our ingredients in, and what I also find is a pinch of coarse black pepper also just balances out this dish. So I'm going to add a little bit of that, and it's just a pinch. It's not even a 1/4 teaspoon. So what we're going to do, cover this because we want our cranberries to steam. Are we good there, cameraman? Mm-hmm. So we want our cranberries to steam. But while that's happening, I'm going to chop up some parsley. And I want to show you guys, are we over on this camera? Perfect. So anytime I buy fresh herbs, parsley and cilantro specifically, I always get them home, give them a good rinse, lay them on a towel or a paper towel to let them dry, and then wrap them up. Then they're always perfect and ready for me to use them. And then you'll notice I used what I needed for last night's dinner, but I don't throw away the stems because you can chop these up really fine. They're great little flavor in soups, stews, and sauces. I just cut off like that little fibrous end, but use the stems on parsley and cilantro. So I'm going to cut up a few tablespoons of parsley because I want this for our acorn squash, and you're going to see shortly how we're going to use that. So just give it a nice little rough chop. And I find during the holidays, anytime you can infuse some freshness, it just makes the food taste so good because so many holiday classics are so heavy that just adding something as simple as parsley, which is nutrient packed and super affordable, is just going to bump up the flavor. This is so fun. I can hear the cranberries popping. So what we'll do is I'm going to reserve this here, and then I'm going to pop back over to this camera over here. I'm going to grab our acorn squash. So can we see this in this view, or should I pop? Okay. So I had made some acorn squash earlier the same exact way. This took exactly, in my little convection air fryer, 15 minutes. But in a larger oven, it may take more like 20 just because it's a larger surface area. So what I want to do here is simply take my acorn squash. And can everybody see this, Ronaldo? Is this a... Yeah? Okay, good. So... Oh, the live does? Okay, that's okay. If we're not live, we'll get it back to them. So we are gonna, here we go, just line this up beautifully. Like, look at this big hearty platter of acorn squash. Yum. Now, I already have the other platter going as well. So just imagine, like with 2 acorn squashes, how full and bountiful that will be. That will easily serve 8 people. So now I'm just going to grab some of our parsley and do a little over the top here. I don't want to use all of it right now, and you'll see why. Because, so we'll get that going. And what I did too, when this came out of the oven, I just did another light little glaze. I brushed on that same glaze that we had with the maple and the pumpkin pie spice and the water. Just did a little fresh glaze on that. And notice here that when you're making the acorn squash, you want it to still have some texture, okay? You don't want it to get almost like as soft as like a soft baked potato. You want it to have a little bite, so it still like can hold its shape. So we'll flip back over here because I can smell these delicious cranberries and I can hear them popping. No, oh my gosh, you can smell that cinnamon. Do you see my facial happening right now? Oh, you can smell that cinnamon, that nutmeg, that orange, and they are just like glossy and perfect. So how you're gonna know that these are done is when all of the fresh cranberries have bursted. And that's why it's so important you put a lid on it, because it's gonna allow them to steam. And I am telling you what, this not only is gonna be so good on your Thanksgiving table, but the next day left over on toast or on top of your stuffing. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just give it a quick taste. And that's something, no matter what you're making, always give it a quick taste before you serve. Make sure your seasonings are right, because cranberries, as I mentioned earlier, may be a little tart. You may want a little extra black pepper, or even need a little more orange. So let me try this. It's gonna be hot. Okay, oh. So good. Yum. I'm just going to add a little drizzle more of agave. I think that, but they are really good. I just know that since my family enjoys cranberries out of a can, they like them a little sweeter. So, and this is something too, on Thanksgiving, you can make this ahead of time. This will be perfect in the fridge. You could even make it 2 to 3 days ahead of time, because it's perfect cold, and just the day up, put it in a great serving bowl. So now what we're gonna do, that these have become absolutely perfect, is I'm gonna put it in a bowl, and we're gonna take it over to our butternut squash. And you're gonna see what we're gonna do over here. Let me turn this off. Try not to throw your spoon in the pan. We're gonna throw our spoon over here, head on over to our squash. And normally, what I love to top our squash with, maybe some dried cranberries or pomegranate seeds, but I thought, how great, instead of doing that, let's just use our cranberry sauce in another way. I mean, yum. Doesn't this just look and scream holidays? Yes. Oh my goodness. And I'll bring, it already smells like it's the big day here. Yum. Okay, perfect, perfect. Then we'll just do a little bit more parsley on top to give that freshness. Let me come over here and share this with you. And here you are, my friends. Acorn squash. Let me know if that angle's good or if I should go over here. So we have acorn squash, came together in under 20 minutes with our homemade cranberries that are perfect as a sauce. You can use this as a side, and you can even make this into a delicious dip. I'll share how to make the dip in the plant-powered hallway, but check this out. Yum. Actually, here, if this even gives it a better shot, I don't know if that helps. Yeah. Yum, yum, yum. So that is it, my friends. I am so grateful for you all, and I hope that these videos are helping. Let me know if this is what if you're gonna add this to your Thanksgiving favorites, or any questions you have about how I can help you take the stress and the mess out of Thanksgiving. This is Cooking with Carey P. I look forward to seeing you in the plant-powered hallway. Talk to you soon.